Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christy, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy, the recap edition. So, as you know, we have shifted a little bit. We had so many fabulous guests that we now are doing 2 guests a week and then one recap episode over the weekend. And that is by design, right? So, intentionally. Our goal with Productive Joy is that you get a shot of B12. So, why wouldn't we want to double that shot and make sure that you're as healthy as possible? So, we are now recapping not one, but 2 guests a week. So, this week you had really great opportunities to learn and grow with a couple fabulous humans. So, the first one was Celi Arias. Celi has a company called The Grown Ass Business. And she likes to keep things simple, but make sure that you have the right roadmap to success. We also this week talked to Queen, and I am going to massacre her last name, and it makes me sad. But she is this brilliant woman, young woman from Africa, and she's done a lot in her 22 years to make some really great things happen for herself, for her village, for her country, for other countries. She's doing the dang thing. It's pretty cool. So let's start with Celi. Celi was a fabulous example of what happens when you have a really clear target and you are aiming towards that target to succeed. And so, what might that look like? Well, that can look a number of ways, but the biggest and most powerful is to really sit down with yourself and say, what is it I'm trying to accomplish? What does it look like for me to be successful? We get to define our own version of success. Nobody else should have to tell us what that looks like. Sometimes, though, we let society tell us what success looks like, and then we're constantly feeling like a failure. Well, that's silly because we actually have a whole lot more influence over that than we realize. So I appreciated what she said. I also appreciated that she made it clear that not only do you have this target, this thing that you're aiming towards, but you have a clear roadmap to get there. And I think that's my hope for this. Now we're in this almost second quarter of 2025. We're wrapping up March and heading directly into April. And as I think about 2025, I really want to think about what is it that I'm doing with intentionality that's going to get me to where I want to go. So my husband and I picked a word a few years back, not a word like for the year, but a word for our marriage. And we do say that McMullins are winners. That is a phrase you will hear us and our kids say. I suppose that's a little arrogant, but you know what? You got to claim your victories. So not only are McMullins winners, but we like the word intentionality. Intentionality meaning everything I do needs to have intentionality, whether it's having a conversation with one another about our goals for the year, or intentionally approaching a project, or intentionally approaching this podcast. Intentionality is super important to both of us. So as I think about my roadmap, right, it has to be done with intentionality. I can't just willy-nilly go, right? So we've all passed a used car dealership, and we know that that guy, that blow up guy that's kind of all over the place. If you're watching, you can see me waving around like a lunatic. That person, that wild man, is not what we want because there's no direction with that. With the blow up guy, it goes where the wind blows him. I don't want that for my life. I don't want that for my marriage. I don't want that for my family. I want there to be intentionality. And so when I listened to Celi, I really heard be intentional, be thoughtful, be, I don't know, smart about how you do things and how you tackle things so that you get the best possible results. So I so appreciated that. And then we shifted to Queen. Oh my goodness, what a light. She is 22 years old. She is currently in college, and she has already saved so many people for so many different things. So, as a young girl, she decided that she wanted to train the other people in her town, in her village, on computer skills because that's not something that's taught in school. And so she figured out ways to do that. And now she works for a company called Tangelic. And Tangelic is a way that we can give back, those of us that have, to those that don't, right? So there are an awful lot of inequities when you think about resources. And in Africa, one of the resources that people don't have is just flat out energy, like power. They don't have the ability to turn on lights. And so, what would happen if they did? Tangelic is working really, really hard, starting in Ghana, to create that, to create the ability for people to turn on the lights so that they have what they need in order to be successful and survive. And at 22 years old, she is heading that charge. She is doing some really beautiful things, and she's doing so with grace and poise and sophistication far beyond her 22 years. I was so inspired by who she is and what she's all about. And I want to translate that into what we can do, right? So, productive joy is meant to give you actions, and those actions meet happiness or pleasant feelings, joy, whatever, however you define joy. And so I want to back up for a second and define joy the way both Celi and Queen did, because I thought they both had great definitions. So Celi's definition of productive joy was that you do things on purpose so that you can live out your purpose. And Queen said that it's all about peace. That productive joy is when you can find peace in what you're doing and recognize that you're exactly where you belong. Aren't those beautiful definitions? And as always, I kind of want to challenge you to think about yours. What's your definition of productive joy? Because it is independently individual, right? It's yours. And you get to decide not only what it means to you, but how you're going to create it. Because it is something that requires you to create it. It's not just going to show up. It's not just going to be there. You have to decide what it's going to look like in your life and how you're going to manifest it. So, the other thing that I just appreciated very much about Queen was her willingness to be obedient and to listen to her community to see what the community needed and then do something about it. I think all of us know what's needed around us sometimes, but we don't necessarily do anything about it. And Queen challenged me to think differently so that I would start doing something about it. So, for our recap this week, you listened to two beautiful, brilliant women who both have figured out how to create some productive joy by following their passions and doing what they were designed to do. And you're listening right now, and my hope is that you are starting to find those things for yourself. So, let me challenge you a little bit. What are you doing right now that is bringing joy? And if you have to hesitate a really long time or you can't figure that out, why? Why is it taking so long? Why are you struggling? Why isn't it clear that you are doing X for that joy? I'm not saying that everything is going to be butterflies and bubbles. It's not. But if you're intentional, like Jason and I say we should be, and if you are thoughtful about what your target is, what success looks like, and you build a roadmap that's going to get you there, darn it, you're going to get there. And once you do, how great. But you don't ever arrive, right? Like you go on the journey, and that's really the excitement, not necessarily the destination. But at least you are getting closer and closer and closer to that space where there is joy. So, for our recap today, I am hopeful that you are finding some nuggets of wisdom that you can use right away. Because my goal in starting this podcast from the very beginning was really just to give you some nuggets, some things that you can do differently and right away so that you do find a little bit of a bright spot in the dark, something that is bringing you happiness. After I wrapped up with Queen, she sent the sweetest email, and we had some technical difficulties before she came on, and she was kind of stressed, and it was the middle of the night for her. And so when she got there, I just told her, I said, look, we have two choices. We can record right now, or we can reschedule because I feel that this has been a lot. And she said, no, I really want to do this. And afterwards, she thanked me, and she just said, I was nervous, but you helped me recognize that my story is worth telling. And so I tell you that because your story is worth telling too. And, stuff's going to get in the way. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be late. You're going to not show up as your best self in that moment. But as I always ask my guests, how do you show up as your best self on your worst days? That's when you take a deep breath and you say, you know what? I'm meant to be right where I am. And I am going to show up as my best version of myself right now, today, this day. That's the important part. So thank you for being a faithful member of Productive Joy. And I am hopeful that you are figuring out ways to turn fun into action.